Welcome to another edition of It's the Story That Matters, brought to you by the Milwaukee Independent Film Awards. I'm Ezekiel Drews, the man in the pink suit, and this is It's the Story That Matters. I have with me today three awesome people that I'm going to introduce here. We have Max Blaska, the writer for The Last Rung on the Ladder. We have Jeff Blankenship, who is the director for that film. And then we've got the lead actor for that film, Seth Hale. So thanks for joining me, guys.
Although I am the lead writer, Carla Bryant was my co-writer.
Okay, perfect. We got the co-writer slash lead writer for The Last Rung on the Ladder, Max Blaska. Thanks for joining us, guys. And let's get right into it. So let's talk about The Last Rung on the Ladder. Max, I know that you've done some other interviews and stuff before, and you kind of talk about the background of how you got involved with adapting this. Give us, the scoop. How did this come about for you?
Well, I started with a vacation with my cousin Olivia. I went to Maine, and I took the Stephen King tour. And I told the tour guide that I was a writer, that I did a couple short films, and he suggested The Dollar Baby. And I didn't think of it before, but then I decided hey, I'm going to go for this. And I wanted to make a story about mental health because, in honor of my Aunt Betty, who introduced me to Stephen King, but also was a mental health advocate. And it would have been the 25th anniversary of her suicide. And I wanted to kind of do this as kind of a tribute to her. And I started writing it in January of 22, hoping for a fall filming, but we didn't get filming until 23.
Yeah. Awesome. For the uninitiated that are going to be watching this, the Dollar Baby program with Stephen King is basically it's a program that Stephen King gives the rights for you to make a film out of one of his stories for the cost of $1. So, and then with that, so I know you said you want to do a film on mental health. So, is that what kind of drew you to The Last Rung on the Ladder? And how did you? I've seen the film, and you kind of change a little bit about it in terms of making it more modern. Tell me a little bit more about that, Max.
Well, there were a lot of stories you could choose from, but I narrowed into Last Rung on the Ladder because it did deal with suicide, which is a very important issue we don't talk often about. And yes, I wanted to. Stephen King and most writers say what you know, and so I don't know about about being a high-powered attorney like Larry was in the story, but I do know about psychology. I got my degree in psychology. I wanted to be a drama therapist, and there is a lot of me in the character of Larry.
Gotcha. And then in terms of the actual story from Stephen King about The Last Rung on the Ladder, so that story takes place probably closer to maybe like the 80s or something, if I remember.
Mid-late 70s.
Mid-late 70s. So a lot of the technology that we see in your adaptation, like e-girls and stuff like that, that's not kind of that's a more modern take on kind of what happened. And obviously people weren't writing letters nowadays as often as they do telephone calls and stuff. So that kind of brings a lot of that nuance and changes to how you adapted the story for a modern audience, right?
Yes. Yes. I mean, in the story, Kitty was a high-priced call girl. And I really, when I wrote the script, I wanted to show the horror of suicide. I wanted to capture Kitty's suicide on film.
Yeah. And that's it's a very, I hate to use the word, but it's a very triggering topic for a lot of people. A lot of people suffer from depression, from mental health issues. And so your courage to come at this story and help to bring awareness is really something that I'd like to celebrate. I personally have also suffered from depression and mental issues over the years, and so I believe that personally I can identify with a lot of the themes and approach that you guys took. Jeff, I want to jump over to you. When you were putting the visuals together for this, and maybe this is, if you worked with your cinematographer, how did you guys work to visually represent, psychological, emotional weights and stuff that, especially just as Larry and Kitty are both kind of grappling with their struggles with guilt and loss. How did you kind of approach that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I had envisioned, so the last scene, where Larry is dealing with his guilt and approaching the podium, kind of this is all coming to him in the moment after Barker has, berated him over his behavior and his inconsistencies and hypocrisies. And so all along when I read the script, I envisioned that moment of being his moment of realization, and that this all plays out in his head, in real time, that he doesn't want, you can see it, the look in his face, he doesn't want to go up there. He's so guilt ridden. But I wanted this juxtaposition between his enlightenment and his awareness now, and his humility coming forward, just as Kitty has essentially thrown the towel in and giving up on him. We didn't shoot it, so we shot these obviously separately. The Kitty scenes were the very first shots the very first scenes we shot in the film. We had not even done the banquet scene at all. What is really interesting about it was when we were cutting it, my message was we have to match up things that Larry's saying with things that Kitty are saying that kind of are the same but actually contradict each other. Larry says, I gave you so much, and Kitty says, no one gave me anything. And we've got this great interplay as they're going in two different directions. So from my perspective, it was just an imagery in my mind that's how that needs to play out emotionally. In the original story that King wrote, it just didn't give me that same feeling of drama and hypocrisy and juxtaposition. And so I had always imagined it playing out that way.
Yeah, that was a major change that Jeff did that I did not like at first, but grew on me, and it made the film much better than the original script that I wrote. I mean, the original script that I wrote, Larry went to the banquet knowing that Kitty killed herself, and all this was going to be in flashback. But Jeff had the idea of changing the order and having the suicide be happening at the same time of the banquet. And I would form a nail against it, but I'm so glad that I allowed him to do his work, and because it's a better film for it.
Yeah, thematically, I can definitely understand, especially as a writer myself. But I can tell you as well that it's a good thing that you guys came to an agreement about it, because it does mount that, especially for an audience that is watching something. They're not necessarily interested in always like, hey, flashbacks about something that's already happened. If it's something that puts that pressure on in real time about like, hey, we need to like try to get to this crucial point. How are we gonna get to that head? And obviously, if you've read the short story, obviously it starts off with Kitty already dead. So having to adapt that and change that to make it a very much more kind of interesting narrative when you're telling this story is crucial, especially if the film is about 30 minutes roughly. So 30 minutes would be a long time to just be like, well, she's been dead the whole time. So it definitely works. And Jeff, your vision for that definitely comes across. Seth, I'm going to jump over to you. Obviously, we've kind of talked about these themes about guilt and everything. Clary's guilt is really a key part of the whole emotional journey of the film. And you do so little dialogue compared to everybody else, but your whole subtext on your face throughout the whole process and everything up to the point where you give the speech at the end. How were you tapping into this inner conflict, if you will, without being able to talk as much? Just give us some insight about how you kind of mentally prepared and kind of how you brought that out.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I just love a lot of these, like, I kind of sometimes in my head split characters into like two types of feelers. They're either gut feelers or they're head feelers. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things that it's really just more of a Seth trick where I'm just thinking like, is this person leading from the gut or is this person more in their head? And this is one I immediately had like, this guy's in his head. He's in his head the whole time. He's not just sitting there in the gut feeling, he's in his head. So he's thinking. So all of his expressions, everything if you're seeing it, it kind of needs to be more of a micro adjustment in my mind for the lens. And I have a lot of theater training. I'm working on a show right now. And so much of that is, there's no camera that's selectively choosing when to look at you. You're always on. So, just visual reacting and stuff. It's just remembering, I'm in the scene even when I'm not the focus. So then when the camera's watching me react to something, it's a lot easier that way. But as far as like actually getting into character in the moment there, remember on set, because I can't pull from my own life for anything. If I do that, I just shut down. Like it's too like I stop like feeling it. I start thinking it, and so I never can pull from that. So I have to like just like find whatever like things around me, visual, maybe music, auditory things that just kind of like put me in the right headspace, and then I can just allow myself to feel rather than try to think about what has happened in the past or something. So I spent probably we got it so long setting up the shot with all the extras as they were like coming in, and I was just sitting in that banquet hall at a table by myself for probably close to an hour, just sitting at the table, just listening to the stuff. I have like a list on my phone of like specific emotions I've encountered to be like, this thing made me feel like this, or this movie made me think this. And so I can just go back and then listen or watch those things whenever I have a scene that has a high emotion kind of thing. So yeah, I was just being a creep at the table, a real loner by myself for about an hour. I like the extras were walking in doing the thing, like they would look at me and I would just stare through them because I knew if I started talking, I would break whatever mood I was in. And then we got to talking after the scene, everyone, we all had a good laugh, but they were like, yeah, you seemed real serious. Like just in there, just like a whole banquet hall sitting by myself.
Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about this process. You try not to draw from your own experience because especially mental health struggles and suicidal thoughts are often internalized, and people don't always, especially I'm going to go on a limb that especially for men, we don't always talk about things, and this can be obviously a huge problem when it comes to being able to express this, and then capturing this on camera is a even harder because you got to make sure you got to see behind the windows because your eyes are the windows of your soul and everything. So Jeff and Seth and Max is applicable here. How did you guys kind of work together to express a lot of these silent battles visually? Like what was your process for trying to get these shots so that way you could get inside Larry's thought process, and obviously with the demon inside kind of just talking his ear off, obviously that can kind of help with setting it up. But how did you guys kind of go about that?
Well, my approach was, and as you know, films are not shot chronologically.
Yeah.
So the character, and I give Seth a lot of praise on this, he's got to know where he is in the film. He read the script, of course, but we're shooting it all over the place. And those scenes that he was in, we shot those all in the same day, but they take place all over the course of the story.
Yeah.
When he's in the office, when he's in his den, when he's at the table, he's all over the place chronologically, but we shot those all consecutively. And for me, I have a pretty good, all of my films are pretty emotionally based. So I always dig into the emotion of the character in my own mind. And what really impressed me about Seth was he found that character very similar to the one I had envisioned for him. And so we were kind of locked in pretty quickly, I thought, in terms of who Larry is, what he is feeling, how he is feeling. And all I had to do for Seth, correct me if I'm wrong, Seth, but I would just tell him in the moment, what is Larry feeling? Is he guilty? Is he emotional? Is he angry? Is he sad? There's a fine line there for the Larry character, he always loved Kitty. So we never wanted to give the impression that he didn't care about her. It's more out of ignorance and kind of just blindness to his own success and his own time. So we had to find that subtlety where he wasn't so much a prick, but excuse the language, but that he was just caught up in his own life and having a hard time facing it. But all I had to do was tell Seth what Larry's feeling in the moment, and he found it instantly. And it worked really well. I was very impressed with that process. We did not have to chase that hardly at all.
No, not that I remember. I mean, we filmed this, what, 100 years ago? So
Yeah.
time is weird. But yeah, I remember that. I feel like we didn't have to have, like, we had an initial conversation. We actually talked for a minute before we got to the set, if I remember correctly, whether it was on the phone or over chat or something, just getting our thoughts out about it. And then, yeah, on set, it was pretty just like, here's where we are in this moment. Like you said, just kind of making linear what we're shooting unlinear. And then, yeah, we just kind of found it. And then there was like cool, like between you and our DPs, just some really cool camera tricks to, like, I think that really for me helped, like when I knew what shot we were doing. I think it was either the beginning during the signing bit or after the signing bit, where there's this like real like expressionist kind of push of the camera on the face, and just knowing that long shot was coming, like seeing that coming, it really just spells out like what we're going for. I think me as an actor, knowing what the camera's doing, I'm just like, okay, I think I get what this shot is and what we're going for here. And that's just like that, like perfect, like existential push kind of thing, right? So it kind of gives me a, like, this is where I'm at right now. The camera's telling me what's happening in here at this point. So like that was just kind of almost like mechanical choices we were making that could help influence the emotional choices.
Not the shot when we get the tear.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah, that one.
It's a very impressive shot. I will tell you. That's.
I mean, you're in the midst of a crowd, but you're all alone.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, and Ethan did the cinematography, and what we did with Ethan, to your point, Seth, was just beautiful. And the background talent we had, those B-roll shots we have of the audience and stuff are just perfect. And peek behind the curtain, you'd think we would have choreographed that for 3 days, and it was all just spontaneous, in the moment shots.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of what I'm saying too, about like the need to just like sit there for an hour, because we really don't have forever to get those shots. And I was like, everyone's going to come in, there's going to be so much energy coming at me, you know what I mean, from all these people, like 100 people. And you nailed it, Max, with just that idea of like being alone in a crowd, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I start talking to these people, I'm gonna want to be friends. I'm gonna lose all of that. And we were just kind of trying to get everything in the moment, whether it was the B-roll stuff with like Ethan walking around, or like set forever, the filming process, you hurry up and wait. So you wait forever for a shot, and you don't want to lose that place. And then by the time we get it, and we get those beautiful shots that Ethan's putting out there, I was like, yeah, alone in public is like a really great way to describe that.
Yeah.
The loudest silence I've ever.
Go ahead.
Oh, I just was paraphrasing. The loudest silence I've ever heard.
Yeah. What I was going to say is it's very interesting, hearing about the process of this, because in the beginning of the film, obviously there's there's a lot of people that are coming up to Larry's character, and they're coming in, they're all wanting something from Larry. And I that as I'm hearing the hey, I had to be like alone because otherwise if I get engaged, I'd lose it and stuff. And I hear it like that, but then I also see like a lot of these characters, even the minor characters or extras and stuff, they're coming up, they're trying to get autographs, they're trying to do all this stuff, they want something from Larry. And it seems like that's actually overall like another theme that maybe I didn't think about until just now, is that somebody always wants something from Larry, whether it's a signature or whatever, or it's his sister that wants something from him, whether it's reassurance or just to pick up the phone, dial him and stuff. And I think that a lot of people are reaching out to Larry to try to establish some kind of communication. Sometimes, from a very selfish perspective, sometimes not. But it seems like that there's, a lot. Another theme is about like miscommunication and how, we're just kind of missing being able to have a healthy relationship because different people are shutting down. And I'm just kind of interested to hear you guys' perspective on that. Maybe Max, the way that you had written the script, what did that play into how you were kind of writing things?
Not really. I want to apologize. I'm a little spacey. I'm overcoming COVID. Could you repeat the question?
So there's different themes that are throughout here, and obviously, there's a theme that comes across is that a lot of people want something from Larry, and that's there's communication. Everybody wants something from Larry, but obviously, it seems like that wasn't maybe an intentional theme, but it does come across.
I did, like, in the beginning of the banquet scene. I wanted to be like Larry was in his head, but all these outside forces trying to reach, and kind of the contradiction of people saying, "You've helped me so much. I mean, I've called my bad guy this," all the while racked with guilt about abandoning his sister. And so it's kind of like, so yeah, that was part of it.
Yeah, and I always saw Larry as kind of a character of himself. He had to become a character that he really wasn't, and this persona. And you can see it in that scene where they come up for an autograph. He puts a big smile on his face and he nods and he's being very polite. He's caught up, but he's kind of like he's just made up the character of this helping person because this is still nagging him, this estrangement from Kitty. It's in there all the time. Obviously, we see Barker, and this is not something that is new to him. He said, I thought I overcame you. I thought I overcame you. I thought I overcame you. This is nothing new for Larry, but he's had to play the role. He's a victim of his own success. It's not really who he is, but it's who he's become, or who the people want him to become.
And how on the podium, that character, that persona crumbles.
Yeah.
Because you see it when you talk about me, well, not me, and all of a sudden, yeah, that's masterful.
Yeah. Let's talk about the ladder scene. So I know, Jeff, we met at the MLC Awards, and we had kind of talked a little bit about, just from a technical aspect, you had to have, I believe it was 2 different locations just to film that same scene, right? Tell me more about that, because I don't know if that's necessarily something you guys have come out and talked about before in some of these other interviews. So I'm very interested to kind of revisit that topic with you. Tell me more about what happened with the ladder scene in the barns.
Well, it was actually a very fascinating process. It was very challenging. I have another friend who's a filmmaker, and he did a 48-hour film there's a scene that happens to take place in a very large barn. And when this story came, Last Rung Ladder, I thought, I wonder if that barn would work. So I contacted him. We went and looked at the barn, and it was absolutely perfect. It's got a 30 or 40-foot ladder. The image of that ladder in that barn looks exactly like the book cover that Last Rung is in. So I thought, this is awesome. And the barn owner was great about it. There was one problem. There was no hay in the barn. So now what do? Haul in a semi-truck load of hay, and then what do? How do we get rid of the hay? What do we do? Can you fake it and make just a little pile of hay? So we had all these challenges. Excuse me. So then I thought, well, maybe there's another barn we could find that had hay and a ladder. Well, I found a great barn with a lot of hay. It was at a horse stable, and all the hay we want, but no ladder. And we thought, well, now what do? We've got hay and we've got a barn, but we don't have a hay barn. And so we just kind of walked through it. I took pictures. I brought them up into Photoshop to see if the look and feel would be consistent enough that it didn't look, like a hokey job. And felt pretty strongly we could composite the two things and, you know, lure the audience into seeing it as one barn. And I think we did that really, really well.
Yeah.
And so that's how we did it. You know, we had a, you know, the kids had to understand the spatial relationship in the barn, and that all worked out. But that's how we did it. That's how we did it.
Yeah. Well, that's also because you had to shoot at two different locations to do that. So when you're talking about shooting out of order, there's nothing more out of order than doing the exact same scene in two different locations.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we did all of the climbing scenes first in the one barn, and then the next day were the scenes in the hay barn.
Yeah, that's awesome. How did you approach the pacing for the film? You know, obviously, you know, the film is you know, originally the story is, you know, happens in, you know, flashbacks and stuff, as Max kind of talked about originally, and obviously we, you know, you kind of changed everything to be, you know, real time. With the pacing of the story, you know, how did you kind of go about trying to get that urgency that was kind of building throughout the whole story?
That was a little challenging, I have to say, because in part, one of my first concerns when I first read the script was, you know, you're trying to find that balance. It's a short film, but you have to tell the story. And I felt we needed a lot more, maybe not a lot more, but we needed more backstory for Kitty.
Mm-hmm.
What, you know, we know there's a relationship with Larry, but what took Kitty down this path that she went? I didn't think just being estranged a little bit from Larry was enough. It had to be in combination of some other aspects of her life.
Mm-hmm.
So while Max and Carla were writing about that, I was trying to envision more backstory. So some of the scenes we shot kind of came up organically. A lot of the Kitty scenes, they were partially written in shorter snippets, and then we elaborated on the scenes, the diner scene, the bar scene. Obviously the hotel scenes were pretty well scripted, but I wanted some of that backstory. But then the problem is, where do they fit in the storyline? So that was a bit more challenging, to keep that pacing properly and not have it feel abruptly, you know, yanked back into a flashback. And I thought we handled that pretty well, but it took a bit of looking at it and playing with it and trying to find that pacing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think you guys did a great job with the pacing for it. You know, with the relationship between, especially when you were dealing with the child, you know, the children actors, and then having to have that translate to the adult, you know, and I worked with Kayla as well on a different project, and I think that she's a fantastic actress. And so I was very surprised to see her in the film. She was in it. I was like, wait a second, I know her. So it was very interesting. And obviously, you know, a lot of times we come on set as actors, and, you know, we've never met, you know, the people that we are going to be working with. And we've, you know, maybe we did an interview just over, you know, a Zoom call or something like this. And you did a script reading just to see, because you can kind of frame your face in the camera. So you can kind of do that, but you don't know what that's going to look like when you're both on camera together. And, you know, how did you guys kind of make that work? Because obviously I know you had to work with the children actors to kind of make sure that this trusting relationship was there. And then you had to kind of evolve that to, you know, with Seth and Kayla doing, you know, Larry and Kitty. You know, how did you guys kind of like, did you guys sit everybody down and be like, hey, let's kind of like do a powwow and like, let's.
I can answer that for the kids. Kurt, I believe it was Kurt's idea, had both Tyler and Ruby and the family stay at the same motel the night before. So they got to hang out with, play with the other, get to know each other. So they weren't complete strangers when they started filming the next day. And I thought that was a very, very good move.
Yeah, that was actually, I met with them the night before in Madison, and we spent part of the evening together with the kids. And then we had a lot of time early in the morning at the barn scene for them to kind of get to know each other and practice together. and they kind of played and were silly together. So that really helped from the kids' perspective to overcome their shyness and their uncertainty about a stranger. The interesting thing about adults, Larry and Kitty, I don't think they ever talked to each other until the last scene of the film. They didn't even meet each other, I don't think, right, Seth?
I mean, that we filmed, yeah, 2 nights or 2 days, and one was like a real full day. And it was just at the end of that night, Kayla came in. And for the most part, the only interaction I had with her directly was just her sitting in the crowd and looking at me. She said one line
Yeah.
up to me once, but like I don't really react to it. You know, I look, but I nothing more than that. And so a lot of like us just making sure it's really it's just trust in trust that Jeff isn't trying to screw me over and make me look weird and see if everything doesn't look right, because he filmed everything. You guys filmed all the stuff with Kayla, so I just really had to trust that whatever I was doing was matching that, and that, you know, obviously Jeff knows what he filmed and is making sure I'm giving something that's going to correlate to what you filmed. And yeah, it worked. But yeah, no interaction really. So
And
Well, I'll
that's
tell you then, your editing process definitely it made it seem like that there had been you know, some much more interaction than that. I would tell you. So that was great, the way that that all came together and was pieced together, because I would never have known that you only met each other for that brief amount of time.
well, and it is a tribute to both Seth and Kayla, because even in the moment, I would have, if you would have asked me on set, I would have assumed that we had all talked too, but that's how great it worked. There was, and I know Kurt, the producer, talks about this, Max talks about it, we all talk about it. There was some magic in the air on this project that just brought it all together. And even when I watch it now, I would have assumed we all talked together. But there was something about it, and it's a tribute to their skill and talent to be able to find those moments, and they do fit. And I always trusted it because, you know, in my head, I knew the story and everything Seth gave me fit in perfect. So I never had to say, yeah, no, that's not what would have been happening here. It all really fell into, you know, lockstep very, very easily. But I think when we were on set that time, when Kayla showed up, we're like, oh, you guys have never met, have you? Because it even felt like they must have.
right. We keep referring to each other. We never saw each other. But yeah, it really is like, it's a testament to the text, right? Like Max and Carla, they're like the script we had in front of us. I think we all were on at least a version of the same page, so that when we could bring all these pieces together, it wasn't, you know, trying to fit a square into a circular hole or anything, right? Like there was, I think we were all kind of on the same page from the text. So that was really great.
That's awesome. Again, it's an amazing film, guys. You know, you've probably heard it, and I just got to tell you, like, it's probably one of the best short films I've probably ever seen.
Wow.
Wow.
It's very good. The narrative holds, I think, and I know that we talked about it earlier, but I think, you know, what Jeff did to just kind of make it real time and everything definitely makes it a stronger film. And I think that that's really, in the end, what you want is you want something that your audience is going to relate to. You want them to take away, you know, some kind of message from the film, whether it's, I need to, you know, pick up the phone and call somebody, because I know somebody that's going through something like this right now, or you might be going through something like this, and it might be like, you know what, I should probably, you know, have a conversation with somebody I love to let them know I'm feeling this way. And I think that, you know, in itself, if you guys, you know, I don't know necessarily what you set out to do when you started making this film. I know, Max, you kind of said you wanted to bring awareness to mental health, but, you know, Jeff and Seth, you know, this is a very powerful film. It's got a very powerful message. And I think that you guys have put together a very well-crafted film. The only other question that I just want to make sure is, you know, where else can people see this? I'm going to do the best that I can to get this one screened at the MIFO Awards in November. But where else can people watch this film right now?
We will be at the Basin Film Festival in Stevens Point on the 12th. We're also in Oshkosh at Sawdust City Fright Fest Film Festival the same day, which is kind of weird. I never would have thought of, like, kind of, it's like an old sitcom. You have two dates, who to go with. We're going to be in East Lansing on October 17th. We're going to be in a mental health hybrid festival in Denver, coming out of Denver next Sunday, not this Sunday, but next Sunday. And we're going to be at the Stephen King Con, the first annual Stephen King convention, September 24th through the 27th.
Very cool. So you got a lot of dates coming up here, it sounds like, which is great.
King Con in Las Vegas, Max.
Yeah, that's the first annual King Con. I mentioned that.
Okay.
Yeah, very cool. So obviously a lot of opportunities coming up in different areas. Future plans for the film. Obviously, once the festival circuits have kind of toned down and everything, what's the eventual goal? Do you want to get this out on
Stephen King owns the rights to this.
Okay.
Can't be used for commercial usage. Can only be used to screening it at film festivals and events like this. I do have kind of a pipe dream of maybe seeing how much it might cost to purchase the rights outright and making it a feature film. I mean, show Larry and Kitty's story in full. After the film festival, I don't know if King will release these. The program has ended last year. But we still haven't heard from King whether he liked it or not. But out of the $100 and so babies, 25 got the go ahead to screen in Vegas next month, and we're one of them. And one of the things I'm using this film for is, like I said, mental health awareness and kind of to tell my story. There was in October of 22, it looked like the film was dead. We had a producer that wasn't working out, and we were kind of stringing actors. I mean, Seth, you could probably attest. You didn't know if this film was ever going to be made, and and it was the anniversary of my aunt's suicide. I was the age she was when she took her life. I was very close, and I had to commit myself. And I want people to know, like from suicidal to filmmaker, that you can survive. That if you're feeling like you want to end your life, don't do it, and find a creative outlet to put your energy into, and it will save your life.
Very cool, and thank you for sharing that. I think that many people, if they just, if they don't give up, like you said, if they push on, that they can find, whatever outlet it is that help them to overcome those feelings, to help find meaning, to continue on. I think, like I said, maybe when people watch this film, whether it's, hey, I need to reach out to somebody, or I need somebody to reach out to me, but I don't know who, maybe I'm just going to start talking to some people about, what I'm feeling, and they can, either they're the right people or they'll get you in touch, hopefully, with somebody that's the right person. So very powerful stuff, guys. Obviously, you guys are all, I know that Max is on Instagram. Jeff, Seth, are you guys in Instagram at all?
Not really, a little bit, but not very much.
My Instagram is purely just for people to tag me. I do not do it, but it exists, and you can see a lot of tagged pictures at Seth K. Hale.
Okay. Well, if people want to follow you guys, different projects and everything that you guys are working on, obviously more information about Last Rung on the Ladder, where can we find out more on what's going on, specifically if there's not necessarily a website, but if there's, a social media that they can follow?
We're on Facebook.
You're on Facebook.
Yeah, mainly Facebook and Instagram. More on Facebook than Instagram, but the film is.
What's the name of the page, Max?
I think just Last Rung on the Ladder.
Your mental health warrior.
Oh, yeah. I'm on TikTok, Max Mental Health Warrior. I'm on FaceTime. I am on Instagram as Max Mental Health Warrior. Doing more TikTok, but trying to get more on Instagram.
Cool. Jeff, where can people follow more of your stuff?
Mostly, well, that's interesting because mostly I'm through either the group I'm working with, either Max Mental Health Warrior. I was associated with a production team called Living Storm Productions. So a lot of stuff on YouTube. I'm on Facebook. I do have something on Instagram, but nothing that's really very current. Mostly just associated with the films I have done.
Sure. So maybe IMDb might be a good way to track.
IMDb, I am certainly on there. Yep.
Okay. Very cool. Thank you. Seth, where can we keep an eye on what you're working on next?
Yeah, thanks. I am, like I said, I have a version of Instagram. You can check out, but I also have a Facebook because I'm old, so that's my social media.
Oh no,
MySpace.
you've made all of us old.
I know, I brought it up. It should have been unsaid. But also, I tend to just post whatever I'm doing on my website, sethkhale.com, or you can find me on IMDb as well. Or if you're in Kalamazoo, Michigan for the next month, come see Jersey Boys at Farmers Alley Theater. I will be in that.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's awesome. So you're a singer then, Seth? Or
Yeah, singer too.
okay, very cool. I do as well, but probably not as well as you if you're doing Jersey Boys. So
You know what? I think I just lucked into it. People don't know I'm bad.
jeez. All right. Well, I won't make you sing on here. But Max, Jeff, Seth, thank you guys so much for
Thanks for having us.
And yeah, great to meet you guys all and see Max and Jeff again. Seth, nice to see you outside of the film. You seem like a much more cheerful person.
It is nice to see the real Seth. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And then just a quick thank you to our sponsors. There's a few sponsors that we have that are helping to help with potentially venue costs and everything for screening. Big thank you to Xerox, as well as I'm going to butcher their name. I believe it is. Should have had that one ready. They just pull up here. Hometown Grub and Pub out of Campbellsport, Wisconsin, and then also Lucid Films and Film Freeway. Thank you to all our sponsors for helping to get these interviews as well as our venues for screening. So with that, again, thank you guys for jumping on, and it was a pleasure meeting you guys all, and hope to talk to you guys soon.
Cool. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Good to meet you. Goodbye, friends from long ago.
Good to see you.